everybody. Welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. We are so excited. This is actually 2 days before Christmas. So it's the Friday before holiday season, Christmas kicking in. And we are so excited about our guest today. We're so excited to have you join us today for the program. And we have such an amazing topic today with an amazing guest co-host and an amazing guest. So I'm Dr. Michelle Cooley. I'm executive producer and the co-host of the James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And I just want to say, happy holidays. Have a safe and a blessed and a great holiday with family and friends. Don't know where you are, but in our neck of the woods, it's really cold. We're in Fort Worth, Texas, and it feels like -5 or so. It's probably 15 degrees now, but people are in, sunny California. They're probably in other places, maybe Hawaii, where the weather is warm. But we're just really excited about the show today, and we welcome everybody. And let me introduce you to our guest co-host today. He has been a mainstay guest on our show multiple times and will continue to be. And also Dr. James J.C. Cooley. He will be with us shortly. But now I'm going to introduce our guest co-host today, Dr. Michael Mantell, to the show. Hello, Dr. Mantell. How are you?
Hello there, Dr. Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing fine. And here's Dr. James J.C.
There
Cooley.
he is.
Hey, I just want everybody to know that we were having a little technical difficulty here, but I think we got everything taken care of. I am so excited about the show today. I'm so excited to have Dr. Mantell always to come and help co-host the show. He's incredible. You all already know that. But we got Dr. Tran. He's going to educate us. He's going to enlighten us. He's going to teach us. And he's coming all the way from Canada, I believe. So I say just sit back, grab you a couple of bags of popcorn, and cause we're gonna do this. And if regardless where you're watching the show at, whether you're watching it on the E360 TV or YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or over 25 plus other live streaming networks, if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is go to the comments, put your question in the comments, and you become part of the discussion. Michelle, I want to get this thing started because I'm so excited about the guests coming on, and let's do it. Why don't you introduce the title of the show, the purpose of the show, and this great guest?
Well, yes. So the title of the show is called No is On, and we're getting to know long-term care physician, life and financial coach for healthcare professionals, and podcast host Dr. Tran. And we're going to talk about believing in your vision and ideas and why perseverance is the key to success and why you cannot do it all alone. You need to surround yourself with people who are smarter, stronger, and as perseverant as you are, and always have an open mind to learn and admit someone else may have the answer to your problem. So let's talk to you a little bit about our guest today. Dr. Tran, he's an emergency family and long-term care physician in Canada. He's a life and financial coach for healthcare professionals. Dr. Tran is passionate about sharing learnings and life experiences with so many others so everyone can benefit from real-life wisdom. He's the president at Canadian Physicians Pension Plan. He's also the podcast host of How is My Financial Health Doc, as well as a national and international public speaker. The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, welcomes Dr. Tran to the show, and we're just going to call him Vu. Thank you, Thank you, Vu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Dr. Cooley.
Hello there, Vu. How are you?
Nice to meet you, Dr. Mantell. Michael?
Yes, good to see you again. Yes.
Well, we are really excited to have you on. And before we get to the title of the show and what it actually means, I loved it when you sent me, this is the topic we're going to discuss. I'm like, so we'll get a little bit deeper into that. So can you kind of tell us your background? What was it like growing up in Canada? And what do you love about Canada?
Well, what is not to love about Canada? How many hours do we have? So, yeah, I think Canada is a great place to live. Today we have a snowstorm. This morning we had rain, and within 2 hours we have a snowstorm. So I think Canada is it's a great place because there's a lot of change, a lot of opportunities, a lot of opportunities to adapt and learn. I came to Canada when I was 4, so I'm originally from Vietnam. Came as a boat person. I don't know if you're familiar with the immigrants back in the 1970s and 1980s. I'm one of the children of these boat people and arrived in Canada in 79, 1980. So I'm a 90s person, really. And started school in Canada, in Montreal, in Quebec, which is the French province of Canada, and studied in Montreal in French my entire life, and then moved to Toronto afterwards after graduating from residency and medicine. And living in Canada, it was a living in Montreal and Quebec City was a great experience. At least as a child, I only saw the good things. I never saw the negative things. And to me, as someone who came from a war-torn countries such as Vietnam at the time, Canada opened its arms to my family. We were very, very grateful. We were excited to be in Canada, and Canada gave us the opportunities to make a new life for ourselves. And Montreal was a cosmopolitan, and it still is. And Toronto is another cosmopolitan in Canada, and so we got to mix with other people. My friends were Greek, they were Italians, they were from Morocco, they were from Madagascar, they were from the U.S., they were from all over the world, and so Montreal was an amazing place to grow up and to learn about all these cultures. And still to this day, I live in Toronto, and Toronto is another cosmopolitan where I walk out the street and I walk down the street and I have all the food that I want: Ethiopian food, Italian food, Portuguese food, French if I wanted to, Korean food, Japanese food, Chinese. Like there's really no limit of what type of experience one can get in Canada, specifically in Montreal and Toronto. And so, growing up in that type of milieu, I think really shaped who I am. And as a child and as an adult growing up, I only saw the good things of what Canada could offer. And to this day, I still think Canada offers amazing things, amazing environment to grow up and to grow in.
Wow. And so Doc, growing up, the doctor, you said you came here on the boat. Who were your role models? Who did you look up to uh, for guidance and that helped shape you into the person that you are today?
I think it's kind of cliche for me to answer this, but I think it's the truth. My role model was my dad and my parents. Um, as someone who just landed off the boat, 4 years old, don't know the language. I literally did not know how to speak French nor English, and so the only people who were my role models were my parents. And growing up, watching my parents work the way they work to raise myself and my sister and give us the opportunity to go to university, for me to go to med school, for my sister to become an accountant. um, Everything was about the family, and everything was about hard work. And it was hard back then, in the 1980s, when you come as an immigrant with a t-shirt on your back. That's literally how we came to Canada. And so, watching my parents work so hard, so dedicated, and it's not like they were dedicated to make a better lives just for themselves. Like they dedicated their entire life to make things so that my sister and myself can have a new chance in this new society. And those are the principles that I've retained. And so my father, my parents are my role model. And my dad, funny, my dad is sort of a intellect. He's a traditional Chinese doctor, does a lot of reading, quite a scholar when he was back in China, and then further immigrated to Vietnam. So he would always tell me these Chinese proverbs. And throughout my childhood, I've always heard these proverbs, which never meant anything to me at the time. But now I'm like, actually, that all those proverbs do make sense. And so to this day, I'm like, I'm so happy and so grateful that my parents are who they are, and gave me and my sister the love that they did. And so I'm very grateful for my parents, and and
Wow.
and that's who I wish I could become later in life as well.
I hear that. I consider my parents my role models as well. Dr. Mantell, you have the floor to talk to Boo.
Well, thank you. For folks watching and listening, Vu and I met just a couple of weeks ago at the American Society of Hematology, where we were leading a 3-day physician wellness studio, talking about emotional well-being, financial well-being, how to beat burnout. Now, I met Vu and after a very short period of time, what struck me was his empathy, his communication skills, Vu, your professionalism, your self-awareness, the way you take care of yourself. And I'm just going to share very quickly one thing. I don't want to embarrass you, but my wife, Paula, had a cough, and we were out having dinner. We had just met this gentleman, and he said, "Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions about your cough, Paula?" And he asked her 3 or 4 questions, and he told her exactly what she had. It wasn't anything serious, and said, "Yeah, take this and you'll be fine." And 2 days later, this gentleman who we barely knew wrote, "Hey, Paula, just checking to see how you're feeling." Wow. How many of us have doctors with that kind of compassion? Vu, I'm asking you to share a couple of proverbs that your dad shared with you. I grew up similarly. I think Michelle and JC and you and I share that blessing. Could you remember any of those proverbs you can share with the audience that had real impact on you?
Absolutely. I think for me, there's 3 proverbs that I still use in my everyday life. The first one, I'll say it in French, because we're from Vietnam. My parents spoke French. And so he would say this all the time: Petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid, which means little by little, the bird builds its nest. And so what that meant for me was nothing comes easy. You have to work for it, and you have to be perseverant. And if you want to build that thing that you want, that vision, that mission, you have to put your time and you have to put your effort. And when you do, things will happen. So that it still sticks with me every single day. The other one that really has a great impact on how I see the world is, um, I think the best way to say it is, um, one mountain will always be higher than the next. And what that meant for me, and what I think it means, is that if you think you're good, someone else is always better. And what that means is 2 things for me: is that as humans, we always progress. We're always looking to progress. We're always looking to be better. But it also means to me that, you know what, I'm good at what I do. I'm good at what I do, and I don't have to depreciate myself. I don't have to feel sad. I don't have to feel depressed just because someone is better. In fact, if that someone is better, there's a reason for it. They have different training. They've thought differently, and how do you work with that person, and how do you work with the other individual who's better and make things better and build another mountain? And so that's what that meant to me. And the third one, I think, really helps me in time of great challenge, and in times of great sorrow. And it's very simple. It's very simple. The proverb is, if you drop an orange, you pick up a tangerine. Right?
That's a
And
great one.
right, and what and I and it came very useful to me at some point in my life where I felt very sad because I did not get the position that I wanted, or I did not get the job that I wanted, or whatever that I wanted to get. And then life turns out very differently, and life turns out very positively in the future. And we've talked about that, Michael, when we had our dinner.
Yes.
And what
Thank
that
you.
means is, for one door to open, another one needed to close. And
Brilliant. Thank you.
always
Good.
look
Thank you.
always look at the positive.
Thank you.
I tell you what, we're gonna take a station break right here, but we're gonna come back. We're gonna pick it up. If you want to be part of this great conversation, all you have to do is just go to the comments and ask this great doc, or I am one of us, any question you want to. It's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? In everything that you do.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and we got some amazing guests. We got an amazing co-host here, Dr. Mantell. We got a major guest coming from us from Canada, Dr. Tran. And wow, I tell you, it's healthcare. We all need it. We all must understand it, and we all must have it. So. Hey, Dr. Tran, can you tell me or us what is different in healthcare plans and healthcare care in Canada opposed to the U.S.? Is it the same?
There are actually more similarities than there are differences. I think similarities between the two healthcare system is that the healthcare system, both either in the US or in Canada, are amazing healthcare system with amazing providers. We're talking about very, very well-trained individuals, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, personal support workers. So from that perspective, both in Canada and the US, the providers are extremely well trained. And I believe that from a technology standpoint, both of our countries have also very amazing, healthcare technology. Where the difference is how we think about healthcare. Um, I think that in Canada, because of our more socialized philosophy in life in general, uh, we believe that healthcare is essential, is as essential as water and air, and so it is. Um, Healthcare is not a privilege. Healthcare is a um, is a must, and so that's how we treat healthcare. And so, similar to the saying "nobody's left behind," well, nobody's left behind in healthcare in Canada. And I believe that in the US, you guys are moving there as well, which is very, very positive to see that you guys are also seeing healthcare in the exact same way we see it up here up north. So, like I said, we have more similarities than we have differences. Um, where the difference is in the payment model. In Canada, we're a single payer because it's publicly funded healthcare, so one single payer by the government. Whereas in the US, you have multiple payers. You have government, but you also have private enterprise that also funds healthcare. We do have that as well to some extent, but to a very smaller extent. And because it's a public healthcare system, there are pros and cons, like there is in the US system. So, very much similar differences is in the payer system, but you know what, when you look deep inside, we both in our systems have very, very strong providers. We have very, very strong philosophies in how we run our healthcare system, and at the end of the day, the both healthcare system is there really for the patient. And every time I come down to the US, that's all I see is that your healthcare system is working for your population. um, we can't be the same. I don't think we can, because we're 1/10 of the size of the US. If we were the same size as the US, can we be exactly like we are today? My assumption would be no. And so we have the system that we have because it works for our current situation. Are there any drawbacks and challenges? Absolutely, in any system there are. But I
So,
think the will and the positivity is that everybody who's working in the system are trying to make the system better for everyone.
Vu, I imagine that access to care it has some differences as well. In Canada, wait time for some medical procedures may be longer than the United States due to a shortage of perhaps medical resources. And here, oftentimes it's difficulty due to lack of insurance coverage or out-of-pocket expenses. That sometimes adds to tension in the system. What about the tension in the physicians? Burnout amongst physicians is a hot topic today. We talk about it so frequently. We saw it at the American Society of Hematology where we spoke. Is burnout an issue, a big issue in Canada amongst physicians as it is here in the United States?
My gut feeling is that the answer is yes. Um, and I tell you my gut feeling because I can't tell you from a statistical standpoint or from a evidence standpoint whether I'm exactly true or not, because all the literature that we see currently that are being published are very American focused and European focused. That being said, it doesn't mean that we don't have the problem. We just haven't studied it. So prior to the pandemic, the Canadian healthcare system is already very strained, like it was in the US and in fact across the world. Now you add the pandemic to it for 3 years, now going through 3 years, everybody's stretched to the very thinnest. And so my experience, what I observe is that yes, burnout is a crisis right now in the healthcare systems, whether we're talking about US or we're talking about Canada or across the world. The last literature that I've seen, at least from a European standpoint, was that 60% of physicians across the board were burnout in Europe. In the US, the statistics are very similar, and Canada very similar. I'm an emergency physician myself in Canada. And back in 2018, there was a study that came out that showed that 86% of emergency physicians responded positively to at least one item of the MASHLAC burnout inventory. And that is amazing in itself when you think that the average burnout rate in among healthcare providers and physicians is 60%, whereas in frontline emergency medicine was 86%. Which that means is that every time I walk into an emergency department, out of 10 doctors, 9 of them are burnout or on the way to burnout. And that for me is unsustainable. It's actually not acceptable. And so, what can we do about it? What should we do about it? That's the question. And how do we reverse trend? Otherwise, it doesn't matter we're a single payer, multi payer. There will not be enough providers to provide the care.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. You know, Dr. Vu, the title of this show is called No is On. Can you tell us where what does this exactly does this mean? And lifetime lessons that you've learned so far in your life that relates to the topic at hand.
So the topic no is on is really the reverse of no. And so when someone says to me, no, Vu, you can't do that, all it means is you're on. Let's do it. Right. And so there is no in my lingo. Or if there is a no in my lingo, I find a way to make it work and make it on. I've once attended a lecture of a speaker who said he used it this way: I am dyslexic. When someone tells me no, it means on. And another speaker said this at some point in my life, and I took it to heart. If the road is challenging and you don't seem to get to where you are, and I'm trying to get from point A to point B, I can't seem to get there. I don't think people should be discouraged. I think people would say I would take the route from point A to point C and then to point D and then back to point B. I will eventually get there. The road is a bit harder, but I will eventually get there if I persevere and I put positivity to it. And I'm working towards it. And so I think the saying every road leads to Rome is true. And not everybody goes to Rome on a direct flight. In fact, for me to go to New Orleans, I had to stop off in where was it that I had to do a pit stop? I think it was in Atlanta or Phoenix. And then to get back home, I had to do a pit stop in Charlotte before I get back to Toronto because there was no direct Toronto flight. And life is like that. Life is like that. And we have to think that it's like that. And those challenges along the road is an opportunity to learn for the future. And that's the only way I see it. It's an opportunity to learn for the future.
Can you imagine seeing a physician, Michelle, who has this philosophy, who only thinks going forward? You have an illness, you have a diagnosis. Here's a physician who's saying, let's think forward. Let's not worry about what's in the rearview mirror. Now, if I might, we had a question from Josh Goldsmith, who is watching, and you mentioned the pandemic, and he mentioned, hey, how concerned should we be about the spread of COVID today? Talking about no is on. What are your thoughts about that?
There's obviously a public health issue here, right? COVID is real. COVID is here. I've had COVID myself. I've suffered through the symptoms of COVID. I've seen my patients in long-term care passing away from COVID. So for me, COVID is very real. And moving forward, the fact that we're vaccinated, this is a miracle. This is a healthcare miracle that we've been able to be vaccinated and get through this. And it's a public health issue still because it's still going around. And those people who cannot protect themselves because they could not get the vaccine for whatever immunological reason, they couldn't get it. We're doing this for them. And that's why we're getting vaccinated. It's no longer just about myself. I'm doing it for them.
Vu, can you hold that point? We have to take a commercial break right now, and we'll be right back. Hey, audience, got any questions for this amazing guest? Please just type in your comments, and we'll be right back on the James Cooley Show. It's your life.
Dr. James.
Hey, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. We're here with Dr. Tran, and he is talking about what the topic today is. No is on. And before the commercial break, we were talking about one of the viewer comments and questions about COVID. And Vu, continue what you were getting ready to say before the commercial break.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to say that, COVID hopefully will be moving along, and we won't see COVID, and we'll say bye-bye to COVID very soon. And I'm confident that even though COVID can stay, that we will be much, much more ready for it. And as societies, as populations, we're now armed with the tools that we have to live with COVID. So I'm very confident that moving forward, COVID will be like another flu, will be like another cold, that we will be able to adapt because humans are very resilient as a species. So I think it will be very bright over the next few months to a year, and we can hopefully go back to a new normal. And I think the new normal is almost here. We just have to get through the winter, And this winter, it's not about COVID. It's about the flu and it's about RSV. And
Mhm.
so we're almost seeing COVID in the rear view mirror.
Yes, my brother, he's actually a pediatrician, and he said that there's so many cases, respiratory illnesses, and the children's hospitals are just full to capacity. And you're right, is you see more issues of the flu, regardless if you got the flu shot. I mean, it helps, but you still get the flu. So let's get back on the topic of no is on. So you mentioned about perseverance. Why is perseverance is important when someone gives you a no, and how important is it to learn how to deal with temporary rejection and not allow your emotions to take over, Vu?
And this is again one of those proverbs from my father, right? Petit à petit l'oiseau fait son nid. Little the bird builds its nest. And as we're building our nest, as we're building to where we want to be, our dream, there will be challenges, there will be pitfall, but we need to continue doing it, because if we're not building our dream, who else? Who is going to build it for us? Oh, it's only ourselves. We will get help. We will have help if we are able to ally other people. But it is our dream after all. And so we need to persevere. And life is about learning. Um, that's why people should be lifelong learners. Every single mistake that we make, it's an opportunity to learn. Um, Dr. Cooley, you started off the show, or Dr. James Cooley started off the show to say, I'm here to teach. I'm actually not here to teach. I'm actually here to share my mistakes. I'm actually here to share my errors, all the things that I've done wrong, because we can always read things in a book, but in life you really learn by trying, you really learn by doing. Now, there are certain things you don't want to learn in by making mistakes. For example, I make a mistake, some people die, so I obviously don't want to make those type of mistakes. And so I learn from other people's mistakes, and I keep learning, and my own mistakes after I've made them. Okay, well, why did I do it? What was the problem? Where did I go wrong? And at the end of the day, I never ask what was wrong with the system or what was wrong with the other guy. At the end, it's always like, well, I didn't do this. Okay, why didn't I do this? Why did I think differently? Next time, how should I think differently? And how should I go around this? Because it's not very helpful to blame the system or to blame the other person, because you can never control that. The only person you can control is yourself. And so if the obstacle next time it comes about, well, last time I took the left, maybe this time I should take the right, or maybe this time I should go above it. And so how should I do it next time? And those are the learnings in life that we need to do. And life is a long journey of lifelong learning.
And Vu, my one of my favorite expressions is the link is what you think. The title of my most recent book.
Absolutely.
You talk a lot about the positive thinking, and I am so on track with you, as are Michelle and JC, of course. One of the hats you wear, among the many you wear, is a financial health coach. In the area of well-being, we have all kinds of well-being areas to fill. Financial well-being is one of them. I'm sure many of our listeners are wondering, why do physicians need financial well-being? They're doing great. The rest of the world could use this gentleman's thoughts about impoverishment and how to get through this difficulty. Tell us about your thinking in terms of physician needing financial health coaching.
Michael, you are absolutely right. I think the learning opportunities in finance is absolutely for everyone, for sure. But I'm a physician, and I started with myself and say, okay, what were the mistakes I've made throughout my career? Um, where am I financially, and why am I in this rut? Why am I constantly running after the treadmill? And what am I actually looking for? What am I actually running towards? And when I realized what I was doing, all the mistakes I was doing, I started learning. I started on a journey of learning of, this is how I will overcome my financial issues, or how this is why I'm running on this treadmill. How do I stop this treadmill? How do I get off this treadmill? And then in that journey of learning, I realized, wait a minute, there are other physicians like myself. I'm definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. And so if I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, I wonder who else are. And I realized that physicians and most of healthcare professionals suffer from the same challenges, is that we are very good at what we do. We are trained, as I mentioned, we're very well trained in medicine, but that's about it. And so we're not very well trained in finance. And I'm a strong believer that if you manage your finances well, the rest will follow. And what do I mean? I believe that the financial mismanagement and issues can lead to physician burnout. Of course, there are system issues, there are healthcare issues, there are environmental issues, there are family issues. Some things I can control, some things I cannot control. I can't control the stock market. I cannot control who's the next CEO of my hospital. I cannot control who's the director of my department. I can't control any of those. What can I control? I can control how I view money. I can control how I make my living. I can control how I spend my money. And if I'm wiser at it, then I will not waste my money. I will not waste those resources. Because once I have those resources, there's one thing that I can try to buy back. And I've said it many times in my talk. Once you have those resources, you want to buy back time. And time is one of those assets that we don't have enough of. Many people think, oh, well, if you make money, you should buy this and buy that. I'm like, no, that's not what you should do. It's not for the Ferrari. It's not for the Tory Burch bag. I want to use the resource to buy back the time. And why? Because I want that time back for myself. I want that time back for my family, for my children, for my community. And if I'm able to do that, I'm now able to fight burnout, because I can't dictate what the market does. So there's no point in doing that. What I can control is what I spend and use. And by doing that, I'm able to preserve the only true asset that we don't have, which is time, but we can sometimes buy back some of that.
That's a great answer. I appreciate that very much. I want to share an interesting quote. It says, nothing is more important than empathy for another human being's suffering. Nothing. Not a career, not wealth, not intelligence, not certainly not status. We have to feel for one another if we're going to survive with dignity. A physician did not say that. Audrey Hepburn said that. I wonder if you can leave us with a gift that we might be able to pass on to our children. How do we share this message? It's not the Louis Vuitton purse. It's not the Gucci belt. It's not the fancy this. How are you teaching that to your children?
What I'm teaching my children, and hopefully they don't do what I do, all the mistakes I've made. Hopefully they see that. But what I leave my children is, one, always family. Family comes first. We have to take care of each other. We have to take care of our society, because we're part of society. We don't live in a vacuum. So we have to take care of society. And to do that, fortunately, unfortunately, we live in the real world. We still have bills to pay. We still have expenses to pay. We still have monthly, financial commitments. So how do we do that in real life and still take care of family and still take care of society? Well, it's having that time back. Having that time back to say, I'm going to use that time for my family, my children, my spouse. I'm going to use that time to serve in the community. I'm going to use that time to do this type of work. I'm going to use this time to help other people, because at the end of the day, I still have bills to pay. But how do I do that and help my society at the same time? Otherwise, it's all very abstract if we don't think about the realities of life. And so I'm hoping to teach my children that there are realities we have to face, but how do we do it in an efficient way?
Vu, hold that thought. We go to a commercial break and we'll be right back.
Hello. Hey, I'm James Cooley. I am the founder and CEO of the J.C. Cooley Foundation. Options, Opportunities, Last Choice Program. Our primary mission is to help build a foundation of our youth and young adults and communities. And we encourage everyone to dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. And the way that you do that is, first of all, you got to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to know that you are here for a purpose. You also have to be able to step out your comfort zone and do things that you probably didn't think that you can do.
Courage, valor, experience. The values that make veterans are the values that make veteran businesses America's #1 choice. Veteran business owners throughout the nation are ready to connect. OpsForVets.com. Handshakes, not handouts. Ops for Vets connects veterans with business opportunities. Here is a closer look at a featured veteran business. Every business listed is a verified veteran-owned business and can be found in the OpsForVets.com supplier directory. OpsForVets.com. Get on the grid.
Hey, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life with our guest today, Dr. Tran, and the topic is No is On. And listeners, audience, you still have a chance to ask Dr. Vu questions and just put in your comments, and we will post them and we will address them. So, Vu, we were talking about, just so many things today. So Dr. Mantell actually had a suggestion, a question about what can we do to help our health span, basically our longevity. Can you kind of address that?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much for the question. Maybe I will start by saying this. We should live a life in two ways, right? One, longevity, but two, quality. And it's not just about, living the longest possible, because I have seen that, and I have seen people live very long, but with very unhealthy lives and also very miserably. So as people, as human beings, we should strive for both. We should strive for as long as we can, but also as healthy and as independent as we can. And so how do we do that? There's no secret. It's out there. So someone told me once, losing weight is not difficult. But it's, sorry, what was the saying? Losing weight is not complicated, but it's not easy. So living a long, healthy, high quality life is not difficult, but it's not easy. So how do we do it? It has to be both spiritual, mental, and physical. Physical, of course, eating well, eating appropriately, a well-balanced meal every single day. I grew up with my father who teaches and who practices Chinese medicine. And so for me, it's all about the yin and yang. It's all about balance. It's all about putting good things into your body. The second thing to do to put good things into your body is to exercise. Maintain the physical aspect, the musculature, the bones, the joints, and the heart of your body. And then finally, spiritually and psychologically. I think it's a really, really horrible thing to go through life with negativity and always things. The system is the enemy. I have to fight the system. No, we can't fight the system because we can't control the system. Who can I control? I can control myself. Can I live a happy life? Can I live a joyful life? Can I live a life full of quality? The answer is yes. And how do we do it? Psychologically, we have to prepare ourselves for it. Mentally, religiously, morally, we can do that. And if we do that, we can live a long, long, and happy life with lots of quality. And that's what we should strive for: quality and longevity.
You know, Vu, we had a guest on our show not too long ago, and she mentioned that, you mentioned negativity, and it's interesting. She mentioned that there was this person that every time she was around her, and after she finished visiting with her, she felt horrible about herself, or she just felt horrible. And I tell that story because why is it important and to surround yourself with positive people, people who are smarter, people who are also persevering, and to realize you can't do everything alone. Why is it important to surround yourself with people like that?
It's important because that's where the positivity comes from. Um, if I want to be a better badminton player, I can play with people who are worse than I am and beat them all the time, but I will never get better. I will never get to where I want to go. For
Mhm.
me to get better at badminton, I have to play with people who are better than I am. And I have to surround myself with a team that can help me win and help the team win. And you know what? We are the planet is a small little planet within the vast universe, and we are very small people within the vast universe. And so, if we are to survive, if we were to move together, if we were to be a species that will continue over time, then we need to work together. And even me as an individual, I have to work with someone else, because as good as I think I am, I'm still not the best. And as good as I think I'm a doctor, there's someone else who knows something I don't. Um, as well as I think I know about finance, there's someone else who knows finance better than I do. But if we want to build something amazing, we want to build something bigger than me, then we have to work together, because I have to recognize my own limitations. And I believe this is one of those things: is you need to know who you are, know thyself. And if I don't understand what are my limitations and what are my strengths, then I can't really build a good team and I can't really succeed, because I need all those elements for the team to move forward. And one person can't do it all. It's just the fact of life. I don't think we can.
I love
Vu, it's interesting that here you are in Canada, here I am in San Diego, Michelle and JC, you're in Fort Worth, and the three of us, the four of us are here on one screen talking to people all over the world to do exactly what you're just suggesting we need to be doing. So this leads me to another quick question. Sometimes we deal with people who are just giving up. This time of the year, especially, is not the happiest time of the year. We may think it's the most wonderful time of the year, with kids jingle belling and all this stuff. But for some people, they're giving up. As a physician, front line, emergency room, and so forth, how do you spread the message of hope?
If you're about to lose hope, or you have given up hope, there's always someone out there willing to lend a hand. There's always someone out there willing to lend a hand. And in fact, there are lots of people out there holding out their hand looking for someone in need. Because I think people are just good people. Of course, there are some bad people, but I think the vast majority are good people. And if you're losing hope, then the first thing to do is recognize, I'm losing hope. Why am I losing hope? What's this happening to me? And where can I find the help? And there are lots of people willing to find the help, to lend the help. Find those people. We cannot succeed alone. And sometimes, as strong as we think we are, there are some down times. There are some times where it's dark. There are some times where we feel sad. We think it's not possible. It is always possible, and there's always a way. And again, there's not always a direct flight back to Toronto. Sometimes we have to go through Charlotte, right? But there is always a way. And that's why this topic is about know is on, because there's always a way. And that way may mean including other people who are more than happy to help.
Wow. We're getting ready to close out the show right now. Vu, thank you so much for joining us. In 30 seconds or less, what is the biggest takeaway you want the audience to learn about this topic?
Perseverance, hard work, believe in yourself, and believe that other people are also here to help. Because in humanity, we all want people to succeed, and we're all going to succeed as human beings. And so the perseverance and the teamwork is how we're going to get there.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for being the guest on the James Cooley Show. Thank you again, Dr. Mantell, as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Audience, have a very Merry Christmas and a very, very Happy New Year. See you next week on the James Cooley Show. It's your life. Thank you.